I'm Carl Moberg. I'm the CTO of Avassa Systems here in Stockholm. I brought with me today my trusted demo buddy, Fredrik Jansson, looking inappropriately happy as we move along the demo trail here. Now we're going to introduce to you Edge Cloud Tenancy, basically a way to provide on platform, that would be the platform that we're running here, third-party managed applications. So in line with the story, the narrative we're following here, we're going to allow a third-party vendor some access to our Edge Cloud. And application tenants, that's what we call them, are created by Edge Cloud managers. And that's what Fredrik is today. He's the super admin. And the Edge Cloud manager then assigns site resources to tenants. We're going to have a single one today. And tenants, they don't have the same granular view, of course, as the super admin or as the Edge Cloud manager. What they see is which sites are assigned to them, and they can only see site level details. And you'll see that in a moment, but they see no host details, right? That's below the abstraction for them. Otherwise, they do just what we've shown. They deploy, monitor, and observe applications on the subset of the resources that they see. And we've made sure that there's full separation across features here. So this is not role-based access control or anything like that. We have full isolation between the registry, the event streams, the secrets management, the resource management, and the APIs. So it gives you a feeling as if you had your own Edge Cloud, if you like, but the resources you see are assigned to you by the Edge Cloud manager. So we're going to add a new tenant. We got a buddy, Joe, over at Ticket Blipper Corporation. Joe, he loves his command line. So unfortunately, we're going to leave the web UI behind, and we're going to show you how to use a command called subctl to interact with our control tower as a tenant. I told you there's tenant isolation here, right? So Joe will get his subctl command, but he will only interact with the system as that tenant. Joe generally has his own image repos, but I will proactively say that in this case, he will actually use our repo here. You kind of get the point. He's going to use the GitLab repo. So we're going to review our tenant. We're going to give Joe a small set of trial sites. We're going to log out, log back in as Joe, and we'll make that a careful jump. And we're going to allow Joe to deploy his trial application, the Ticket Blipper application, to all sites that he has available, but using the command line interface. So brace yourself, gentle people, for some more command line, some more terminal.
Thank you. So back into here, as I mentioned before, I previously created the tenant, Ticket Blipper Corporation, but they actually don't have access to any sites. So should they log in at this moment, they won't be able to do anything pretty much. So first thing I'll do as the super admin or owner of the movie theater company, I'm going to give Ticket Blipper, Joe at Ticket Blipper, access to a few sites. And it so happens that I'm going to give him access to all sites starting with an A and a few more, just for
because
fun.
It's Joe.
Yeah, just because it's Joe. He's a great guy. So now Joe has access to A sites or A movie theaters plus a few more. And here's what I'll do. I'm just going to copy this URL. And hold on. So I'll do this, open up a new window, paste that in here. And now when I log in, I'm actually going to log in as Joe at Ticket Blipper Corp.
Hey, so Fredrik, can I just ask, sorry, I may have missed this. How are we populating Joe in there as a user and Ticket Blipper as a third party?
Very easy. You create a new tenant, you give it a name. This is just tedious, but basically you give it a name. So let's say popcorn systems, and you give it a Fred at popcorn.com. You give it a password, and you hit submit.
So is there a way to interface with other ID providers for that? So Azure AD, as an obvious one, is that possible?
It's on the roadmap. So for now, the interaction or the integration with such services is actually unique to the what we call the Edge Cloud Manager. And we're still trying to wrap our heads around what it would mean to have third-party authentication authorization for tenants. But it's definitely on the roadmap because we know that's going to come down the tunnel in production environments right away. Because, admittedly, and we have one more such thing, it's funny you would point that out, that's not a very modern way of managing tenants, but not yet.
Carl, sorry, if it's on the roadmap, do you have any logging about what administrators would be doing in the system so you can see what's actually happening?
Yes, very detailed audit trails in the control tower itself.
And just one other question on this. While we're talking about Joe as kind of a third-party provider, I'm assuming this is a similar model. If you were splitting up teams across a large dev team, you'd kind of create subsets of users with access to certain sites like this? Absolutely.
So we kind of have two types of users. One that has just let's call it organizational rigor. So they have tenants for organizational units for teams. And of course, we have users that actually has a commercial relationship to their tenants. So they actually want to charge for resources consumed. But you're absolutely right. It does apply as you scale out and it becomes, if you think of retailers, for example, they have very large IT and development organizations, and not all of them should have access to all sites at all times. So that bang on target, absolutely. That could easily be an organizational part of the same company that the Edge Cloud Manager is a part of.
Yes. Great, thanks, Carl.
So now, just to be clear, I'm Joe at the Ticket Blipper Corporation, and just to prove to you, I only see the sites now that were assigned to me, and as Carl mentioned, I actually see fewer things about each site. I don't know how many hosts Amsterdam consists of. I do see, though, the labels that were put into place by Fredrik while I was at the movie company. And I can, of course, if I have further needs for my applications, add my own labels. So type, I don't know, sci-fi. This is a movie theater where we only show sci-fi movies. I don't know. But I something that makes sense to me, Joe, at the Ticket Blipper Corp. I can, of course, label the sites and use that when I deploy my applications. That said, again, brace yourself for terminal, because now we're gonna switch back to terminal and log in as Joe.
Good old command line tool, Joe.
Good old Joe. Where's Joe? Where's Joe? Here he is.
Hey, so is that a thing? I mean, with sorry, that sounds dumb. Is that a thing like with DevOps where like y'all are super stuck on the terminal? Because on our side, like we're trying on the wireless side, networking side, we're trying to move everything over to API. Like no more terminal. Is that just a difference in the two types of industries there?
Oh my God, I want to hear the other delegates comment on that. I'm not even gonna. That's a 10-foot pole question, but I would say yes. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know. I see a lot of CLI, and I'm like, I get it, I appreciate it, I love it, but I see everybody else going, oh no more of that. Let's move everything to API.
Are there APIs? There's an awful lot of CLI still floating around in the IT world outside of the network space.
Yeah, and interestingly, because I have a background in this, I painfully see people building UIs on top of CLIs. That's where about as much as I can take. But it does happen that they, on top of command line tools, they put UIs in. So I think we're going to be stuck with it for another generation or two, maybe. But I think what we're trying to do in almost like a defensive fashion is that we have a core abstraction with data models, which is the data sets that you're seeing here. And independent of whether it's the command line tool or the UI or the REST API that's behind the command line tool, it's all about manipulating that data that's centrally stored and managed by a model. So we don't suffer too much. It's pretty straightforward for us to generate, if you like, the data set that you can manage through the command line tools. So more power to those guys if that's what they want.
Yeah, and I'm not knocking it. I'm just right. Curious because I see on the other side there's so much moving towards API where.
Yeah.
Well, didn't you say that there's an API behind?
This is all actually the subctl command that we're going to show you here talks REST. It's a very, very thin client. It does have some particularities, which some of the people that are versed in this will see. We can do tab complete on the commands and the data set. So that kind of reveals that we have some understanding of what's going on the server. But apart from that, it's all REST.
Yes. Carl, if my son who's studying cybersecurity is anything about CLI, I can tell you CLI is going away a lot quicker than you may think. He's barely learning it.
More power to him. Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Tell him not to stop.
I find it funny. I'm like, I love being in CLI for things, especially on network, and he's like, what's that?
There's hope, guys. There's hope.
Can of worms, y'all. Can of worms. Y'all sure are typing a lot, is all I'm thinking. That's
sure. Worst case, they're pasting or even generating the text, which again, let's not even go there.
If it's like me, the more typing you do, the more mistakes you're going to make, and it's not going to look good in the end.
That's a good point.
That's why you need tab completion. But again, really important to point out that both the UI and the subcontrol commands are really sitting on top of API. So everything we do in the UI today or through GitLab or through subcontrol is all talking to the same API in the back.
So then that beckons a question: is that API exposed? Is that something that okay? I assumed you were going to give me one of your big Carl nods there. You're like, yes, absolutely.
The product manager nod, yeah. Happy to tell you that is a real thing. Yes. Very
cool. Well, good. Then y'all will be one of those that's like that first group to step out and say you don't need the CLI anymore, right? I'm just kidding. I'm not.
We'll see.
Why don't you join me for that meeting? And we'll see.
I'm still old enough to I enjoy my CLIs. So real quick, I'm going to log in as Joe. Again, apologies for exposing for Joe's password here, but pointing to the URL at our movie theater company, I'm now going to log in as Joe, like that. And with that in place, I can start interacting again, says I like CLIs with the system to. I can do show state. Actually, let's start this list state assign sites. I can actually look at what sites, typing ahead, were assigned to me. Again, I can look more into. You guys have to stop me. I love the CLI. I'm going to get stuck here. Look into some stuff about the sites that I have access to as Joe. But that's not why we're here. We're here to deploy our first version of the Ticket Flipper. So let's start looking at that. So I'm going to look at the Movie Theater Corp.
Register first, right?
Register first. Thank you. First, as we did, since they're tenant separated, just because I registered the GitLab registry before for the Movie Theater Corp, Joe doesn't have access to that. So I'll quickly do subctl create config registry remote name default address registry gitlab.com.
Because of course we can't assume that the tenants all use the web UI. We can't assume that the tenants all use the same registry. Actually, we can probably assume that the tenants won't use the same registry. So this is part of the tenancy model is, of course, they will all have their own interaction patterns and their external needs. And of course, we can't assume, for example, too, that all tenants use AWS CloudWatch, right? So just to give you a sense of how deep the tenancy goes is that they get their own interaction patterns and their own APIs here.
Yeah. So I'll do this a bit quicker. I won't go into details about the Ticket Flipper app. Basically, it's similar to what you've seen before. Application describes what images and configuration goes into this one. And I'll do a subctl create config applications. And I basically pipe the content of that file into the APIs. And actually, just because you asked, I'm going to do this. You can actually see, so I put on a verbose flag, you can actually see that we're posting this to the API. So it's really a thin wrapper around our APIs in the background. But again, it gives us some nice benefits like tab completion and so forth. So now we have the app spec in place. Let's look at the deployment spec. We're going to deploy we want to be able to charge our customers. So we're going to deploy this to all movie theaters across the globe again. So
all movie theaters that this tenant can see, right? So that's not going to be not all sites, but the sites that we have access to. So system type edge here means something different for a tenant than what it does for the super admin or for the edge cloud manager. That's important.
That's really important. And here we go. So I've created those and I'll just briefly show you show state, application, deployments, ticket deployment. So I can see that it's pretty quick now. It's already deployed. I can see what sites I've chosen to deploy to and where it has been deployed to, which is all the sites. And again, just want to show you like this. It's totally API driven, and everything you get back, you can ask to get back in JSON or typically in YAML. But if I push that -J flag on, I actually get it back in JSON format if I want to integrate with the APIs. And then obviously, if I go down here, you can see those the application I just created. It's been being deployed in the UI. So a bit faster, but different tenant, different application on a subset of sites that it has the ticket corp has access to.